Okay, good evening everybody, and a warm welcome to this Community and Leisure Overview and Scrutiny panel. Welcome to the members, other members and officers in attendance at this evening's meeting. Welcome also to members of the public and press who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Geoffrey Blunden, Chairman of this panel. Please note this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. Please could all in attendance follow the Council's ground rules for virtual meetings, which have been well circulated. In particular, to reduce feedback and background noise, please mute your microphone when not speaking. Only speak when invited to do so by me as Chairman of the panel. Please use the raise hand button in Microsoft Teams to indicate you would like to speak, and remember to use the lower hand button once you have been called to speak. I will be taking recommendations by consensus at this meeting, but if a vote is required on a particular item, I will call each panel member to vote in turn. In the event of any technical problems, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. If an individual loses connections and the meeting can continue with a quorum, it will do so. I will now call the name of each panel member and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at this meeting. As previously mentioned, I am Councillor Geoffrey Blunden, Chairman of the panel. If I could then go to Councillor Neville Penman.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Neville Penman. I'm Vice Chairman of this panel.
Thank you, Neville. Councillor Steve Clark.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm Councillor Steve Clark, representing Milton Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Keith Craze.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm Councillor Keith Craze, representing Barton Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor Arthur Davis, Totton North, District Councillor.
Thank you, Arthur. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Good evening. I'm Barry Dunning from Leamington Ward.
Thank you. Councillor David Hawkins. David, are you there?
Did you get that? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name's Councillor David Hawkins, and I represent Milford-on-Sea.
Thank you. Councillor Karen Rackham. Can't hear anything. Caroline there?
I understand she's having issues getting in through broadband.
Okay, thank you.
She's marked as being on, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. The broadband's just coming and going.
Okay, you're there, Caroline. Okay.
I'm Caroline Rackham and I represent Totton South.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Russell.
I'm Councillor David Russell, representing Totton West.
And Councillor Alex Wade.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Alex Wade and I represent Hyde West and Mandown.
Thank you very much. Other members of the council in attendance will be recorded in the minutes of this meeting. So if we can go straight on to, I take it we've got no apologies.
No apologies, Chairman. All present and correct. Thanks.
Thank you. Item 1, which is the minutes of the previous meeting, will be submitted for the panel to approve. On to item 2, which is the declarations of interest. Before we take that, if I can just make a declaration of interest on item 5, which is community grants, B, capital grants, and item 21, which is the New Milton Men's Shed. That's a non-pecuniary interest as a town councillor of New Milton and actively support the Men's Shed project.
Chairman, I'd like to declare an interest, if that's okay.
If I can ask members just to put their hand up, that would be on the system, that would be great. Okay, they're taking them in order now. Councillor Steve Davis.
Chairman, hello, good evening. Yes, I'm attending to discuss the community grants. I am the District Council representative on the New Forest Arts. I have a non-pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Clark.
Yeah, as for you, as the same member of New Milton Town Council as far as any of the New Milton issues are concerned.
Thank you. Councillor Edward Herring. Welcome, Edward.
Good evening, Chairman. First item 4, I am the County Council's representative on the Safer New Forest Partnership. Item 5, a number of the organisations being discussed fall within my district, ward or county boundary. I would draw particular attention to the Fording Bridge and District Community Association, where I sit on their management board.
Thank you. Councillor Neville Penman. Neville.
Thank you, Chairman. Community grants. I'm chairman of the Tottenham Kneeling Scrutiny panel for Minster Trust, so it's a non-pecuniary.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I've got any direct interest. I'm just a member of Tottenham Kneeling Town Council that Totonians are in this ward. So apart from that, I haven't got any real interest at all. Declaring.
Thank you, Arthur. Can I ask Steve Clark if you kindly put your hand down on the screen? Thank you. Councillor Alan O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Chairman. It's non-pecuniary interest. Item 5, community grants. I'm Town Council representative on the Forest Arts.
Thank you. Councillor David Hawkins. I seem to have lost David again. Councillor Karen Rackham.
Yeah, it's non-pecuniary. I've done any work for a long time for the organisations, but I do know a lot of the arts organisations very well. SPUD, I think, is one, and the Forest Arts Centre as well are on the list.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I represent New Forest District Council on the board of Forest Forge.
Thank you, Christine. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Hello, Chairman. Yes, I'm on the limiting ward, and I noticed you've got St Barb's Museum. So I have no interest in St Barb's, but I'm on the Lymington Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alex Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, on number 4 on the agenda, the Safer New Forest Partnership, it references the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service, and particularly Safe and Wells, and that is affecting the department I work in my full-time employment. So I'm not sure if that needs to be referenced, but I do currently work for the Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service and involved in the department that administrates the Safe and Wells. And secondly, on the community grants, as a parish councillor on Highland Dean Parish Council, we work closely with the Handy Trust, and one of the elected councillors on that group, and indeed trustees, is indeed Councillor Malcolm Wade, who is my father. So I think that should be noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I think quite a list there. I think it covered everybody. If I could ask Barry, if you could kindly put your hand down on the screen, that would be great. Okay, if we can move on then to item 3, which was public participation. There isn't any. Straight on then to item 4, which is the Safer New Forest Partnership, consideration of crime and disorder figures for the district and the proposed priorities. Brian Byrne, if I could ask you to lead on that.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. Chairman, it's come to that time of year again. It's the annual strategic assessment. It was just really before Nikki presents the documents. It is just to remind members that obviously the data which is compiled within the report utilises the crime data from police, from Hampshire Fire and Rescue, probation and other services, and that data is up until the 31st of March 2019 to 2020. So that data is not covering the period of the COVID pandemic. However, within the summary of the document, I hope you'll have noticed that there has been references made throughout that, because I think it would be neglect of us not to do that. But Nikki will talk you through the documents in further detail. And within that, obviously, it's been to the strategy and delivery group, and Nikki will talk you through some of the findings. And if there are any further questions, Chairman, towards the end, between myself or Nikki, I'm more than happy to answer those questions. So if I can introduce Nikki.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. Hopefully you'll all have had sight of this strategic assessment, and it's given you some insight into the work of the partnership and how our agency's partners have contributed. As you can see from the summary, violence without injury has increased by 20%. Breaking this down, I just wanted to inform you 133 of those incidents were actual letters sent with intent, and 188 of those incidents were harassment offences. So that sort of explains that. The possession of drugs increase, we've written there, it could be attributed in part to that this has been a previous priority for the partnership, and the work has been continuing around reporting intelligence, gathering information. We have a drug-related harm forum now, so all that work that's been going in could perhaps have encouraged the reporting, and lots of warrants have taken place, so that could be showing that. With regard to the domestic abuse, services have seen an increase in supporting clients as it shows up on the assessment. So I just wanted to discuss that. With regards to the emerging trends, since lockdown and COVID restrictions, all agencies are concerned about the hidden harm and crime. Children aren't attending schools, they're not going to college, to their sports clubs. Lots more people are working from home. Tensions at home may possibly be rising, with all sorts of things going on at home. Referrals actually did increase to domestic abuse services after the first lockdown. Children's services and other agencies did see an increase in referrals, so possibly that might happen again this time. The strategy and delivery group met last week, where we discussed the strategic assessment that I put together from all the agency updates, and the priorities put forward. We would hope to remain for children at risk, drug and alcohol related harm, and domestic abuse. But also we agreed the fourth priority would be the prevention of risk and exploitation of vulnerable people. We do realise during COVID that there's been a lot of scams, frauds, a lot of exploitation to vulnerable people. A lot more people are feeling quite isolated, trying to get to grips with technology and all the rest of it. So we would like that to be a priority as well. The leads for each of these priorities will then be meeting early February, where we will be writing the partnership plan going forward for the coming year. So that will be from April 2021 to the end of March 2022. And the plan will begin in April. This will be a live document for the year and can be altered and updated as we progress and come out of lockdown. Hopefully, there's a lot to go through on the strategic assessment. I didn't want to go through it page by page with you. Hopefully that it may explain a couple of points for you, but I'm open to any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Keith Craze.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the information about domestic abuse. Very interesting and equally frightening, I think. I just want to know, looking ahead, what are we anticipating the numbers will be? And more particularly, what do we anticipate our actions will be to try and deal with, if that's the right phrase, those actions? Thank you.
If I think it's probably a dual part to that. If in terms of what do we anticipate the numbers to be, in truth, I don't think there's actually a real specific, honest answer I can give you to that. What I can probably talk you through, Councillor, is some of the influencing factors. Certainly, what we have noticed in part with lockdown, with family tensions, community tensions, isolation, all of those factors, unemployment, debts. Alcohol, a lot of factors contributed towards the deterioration or breakdown of relationships, not just within the domestic environment, but also within neighbour relations. So we have seen a direct correlation with that and domestic abuse, not just locally, but that's actually nationally. On top of that, what we've also seen is with the introduction of a new commission service who respond to domestic violence, when they commenced their contract, they came across very strong in terms of accessing vulnerable victims. As a priority that we had as well locally, they were able to access that even more so. So again, whilst the numbers increasing in terms of access, we see that as a positive, not necessarily as a negative, in terms of people, vulnerable persons, not just victims, but the wider family access and support has been a positive. In terms of the long-term strategy, we are responding to obviously the pandemic in terms of the current isolation. Some of the measures that we're having to put in place are things like the chemists being code words for chemists so that vulnerable victims can access support services. And we're trying to be more imaginative of how we can reach out to vulnerable persons as well. In regards to where the long-term numbers will be, again, I wouldn't like to estimate, but I am certainly expecting a spike. And then as things start to open up again, we may see a reduction. But that's probably twofold. The reduction may be that actually the tension have reduced within the familiar environment, or people are no longer accessing support. So I'm not entirely sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Nikki, is there anything you want to add to that?
Only through, I chair our domestic abuse forum, and throughout this we have kept in touch with our commission services and any community-based services. I do know that they have received extra funding over this time. The OPCC has put out extra funding bids. They have recruited extra staff. We also have advocates that go out in the police cars to the high-risk domestic call-outs. The police monitored all the time. They go out and they visit the medium risk perpetrators as well. There is a lot more workings behind the scene. I think agencies are very aware that there may be a higher risk as we come out of this, and they are putting plans in place, looking for funding streams all the time. No actual service has shut during COVID. They may have had to do it virtually. They have still visited the high risk perpetrators and any cases they've had to, and none of the refuges have closed. So it's all ongoing. I think people are very aware that it's happening, and hopefully that sort of like allays a few of your answers.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's all ongoing, and thank you both for your comprehensive answers. Thank you.
Okay, I've got Neville Pember, Councillor Neville.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not a question, it's just a thank you. I had a great response back from residents regarding the COVID ambassadors in the shopping centre at Tottenham, and they were extremely pleased to see that NFDC were doing something, and it went down very well. So thank you very much on behalf of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neville. Councillor Steve Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Likewise, as for Councillor Keith Craig, over the concerns about domestic violence, some of the information I've read indicates it'll be up by at least a third, which is quite worrying. Hopefully the New Forest isn't quite on trend to that. But also linked to that, I am concerned with safeguarding and child abuse issues and how well we're monitoring that, because the two do go hand in hand. So I've got particular concerns there. If Brian can perhaps make a comment on that, and also totally separate the cyber issues. There's quite a bit coming out now on potential scams coming in on the vaccine offers. Can you tell me how we might be trying to address that? Wherever there's an opportunity, the scammers will come in, of course.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Councillor Clark, I think wherever there's an opportunity to make money, people will always exploit that position. If I go through the points you raised, the aspect around you read about some areas experiencing a third of an increase, and whilst that is absolutely concerning, I'm not disputing that. I think as well, when we need to look and drill down into those cases and actually, are those people accessing the support now because we've widened the support access networks to them? If that's the case, then we need to make sure we learn from that and we develop that even further still. So I want to make sure that, one victim is too many victims, and we certainly just increase those access supports for those individuals. With regards to the safeguarding and children, and if I may elaborate on that in terms of safeguarding of vulnerability in all its guises, be it young people, adults, or vulnerable persons, what the team have focused on, particularly within the safeguarding, is that as a council, we've obviously reverted, as we are here tonight, to remote working. What Nikki has led through with the team, and particularly, is a number of factors. Is we've continued the ongoing support for all the staff. So where the teams are now working remotely, we felt it was very important that they had access to the expertise should they have any concerns, and that's now all being dealt with remotely, and that has continued since the initial lockdown. Additionally to that, the team have developed an information that goes out, an information email kind of leaflet that goes out to the teams every 2 months, again following on some of the emerging trends or some available opportunities for resources to make sure that it stays on the agenda of the team, that it stays in their focus, that actually the hidden crime, the hidden victim is discovered. And that's impressed. Again, Nikki's doing some direct line training with all of our frontline services, both within housing and other functions across the council. So again, doing that remotely, but again, to act as the eyes and ears of the council for those essential staff who are undertaking frontline duties in homes, in establishments across the forest, or merely undertaking screening questions, telephone contacts, those types of things, so that again, that those concerns, where identified, are certainly raised and acted upon. And the last thing, if I may say, Councillor Clark, is one of the priorities that Nikki referred to about that came through the strategy group, particularly focuses on the vulnerable adults, and that is particularly focusing on exploitation of vulnerable adults, and that is in line with what the point you made about that we have where there's an opportunity, we see people will take advantage of that, and that's one thing that we felt that the lead agency for that, with our support, will be the Fire Service, as again they are certainly seen as the more friendlier side of any uniformed service. And they're very good at accessing those vulnerable groups, as I'm sure Councillor Wade will know, in terms of his actual priority role, particularly within Safe and Wells and so forth. So we are looking at all of those opportunities to make sure that we tap those vulnerable groups.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Go to Caroline, Councillor Karen Rackham.
Thank you. I noticed that there's obviously an issue with drug and substance misuse, and I'm just wondering, first of all, is there a link to domestic abuse and aggressive tendencies generally, which is a horrible situation for people to be stuck in lockdown in that sort of situation is just awful. So that's the first question. But secondly, obviously, if this has happened before during lockdown, is it likely to happen again? And what's in place now from lessons that have been learnt for the coming months when the situation is likely to repeat itself?
Yep, thank you, Councillor. I think to be very clear, I think if I stood here today and said alcohol or drugs or any other substance is a cause of domestic violence, I think I'd have every domestic violence charity give me a good verbal telling off. Any form of domestic violence is about parent control. It's not about drugs, it's not about substance. Substances do not increase domestic violence, do not cause domestic violence. So domestic violence is simply about power and control. And I think we need to be really clear about that where one person uses a position of authority or control over another. In terms of the drug misuse, I don't believe that New Forest has a drug misuse or drug dependency that's higher or more prevalent than any other area. Certainly, what we have is that where people where people have access to substances, there's an associated affiliated acquisitive crime that goes within that to fund that. So an awful lot of the work that Nikki and certainly the police are doing as a collaborative is twofold. One is actually targeting those who are selling drugs, i.e. higher up the chain, because essentially what you'll have is a two-tier approach, which is that you've got those who are making the money out of it and the enforcement element of it, and you've got those who are essentially the users, and those users often come with their own vulnerabilities. And actually the second prong attack is you can't just keep locking up people because they're found in possession of drugs. In terms of personal use, that also has to look at therapeutic measures to end that dependency on those drugs and provide alternative means. So actually you break free of that. That then in turn has a direct impact on the reduction of crime and disorder and breaks the cycle overall.
So are those measures in place? I noticed that it's gone up by 64%. That's all.
Yep.
What's drawn my attention to it. So I'm just
absolutely
really
yeah.
to see.
Sorry, to answer your question in more directly, in that sense, yes, those measures are in place. There's a multi-agency approach around that, both in terms of addiction support prevention services. That's both organised and third sector and within faith-based. You've then also got the enforcement through the police, through probation, and within that, you've also got the other aspect, which is the intelligence. Now, one of the things that Nikki referred to earlier on is that active intelligence sharing, so that we can identify all persons along the food chain in that respect, and I'm referring to my own housing stock within the council as well, to make sure that we are proactively working with our policing partners, so that we can identify every strand. So any increase, yes, is there, but I think it's also has to be put in context that during the initial lockdown, when people were sourcing drugs because of the lockdown, they were much more easier to detect, because guess what? No one else was out and about. So in some respects, they stood out a little bit better. So, and the police had that resource to be able to focus on that detection as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go to Martin Levitt next. Martin.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The most fascinating report, I have to say, for a number of months of reading of this stuff. But I have to ask the question: who actually wrote the report, word by word? Because even I have spotted 4 pedantic errors on the report. So I'd just like to communicate them with whoever wrote it, so that they don't appear next year. But I do have a serious question about the community engagement section. But can you answer that question? I don't know who gives me that answer.
Yeah, I'll quite happily answer that question for you. You will see that the form you're looking for, it has draft strapped right across the centre of it, Councillor Levitt. This document was put very quickly together to make sure that it was met for tonight's meeting. It's only been in draft format. What will come back now between now and the end of March is that all that will go through, both grammatically, typing errors and so forth. So I assure you the final version will
so
be...
So who do I communicate my...
Well, you just have, I think, if I'm honest with you. And I think if you want to email me or Nikki, that would be perfect.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for that. But can I just ask my question about community engagement? Page 14 of your report, page 19 of the papers for all us councillors. Paragraph 6.3, you talk about there has been a significant drop in responses to the annual survey from town and parish councils. Now, how material was the effect of the pandemic on? I find it surprising to find you using that as an excuse. You know,
I think Nikki will probably have an answer to this as well as myself.
Nikki's smiling.
Well, I think Nikki's smiling because you've said what I said, if I'm being really honest with you, Councillor Levitt, which was when I looked at the low returns, my very first question to Nikki was this due to the fact that maybe some of the town councils were shut? Was this due in any part of that? And I will now let Nikki answer that question, which was?
Last year, I emailed all the town clerks and asked them to respond, which they did. I did the same again in September, sorry, when I say last year, I mean the previous year. I'm getting my ears in a muddle. So I then sent it out again in September of 2020, asking for returns by October. And I had very limited response from clerks. I didn't push it because of COVID, but I was surprised that I didn't have that many returns.
But just to reinforce, you're saying there was a material fall away from the previous year. That's what you're saying, is it? Or have local parish councils just not responded for decades or
We started the survey 2 years ago because we did community engagement with the public, and we also did an online survey for young people, and I thought we would do one also for town and parishes. So this is only the second year that I can do a comparison.
Right. Okay.
And so there was a fall this year. Whether that was COVID, I know clerks they're not all full time, and to get everyone together to discuss it.
I think it's fair to say, Nikki, I think there's only one return. Is that correct for the parishes?
4.
4, I beg your pardon. So 4.
Okay,
Martin, I think we've covered that now. I think it suffices to say it is a draft report at the moment, and I mean there was a knock on with COVID. Alex Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, thank you very much for the report, Nikki and Brian. I remember several meetings ago we spoke about county lines and cuckooing as a concern with regards to drugs as a subject matter. Is that something that is still a concern? Has it been impacted at all by the past 12 months or so with COVID? And sort of what actions are going to be undertaken? So I imagine that whole situation, and I think you made the very important point, if you see someone out and about, they're more noticeable now, or less of us are out. I just wonder what sort of development there's been, because I remember we had a big discussion about that in this committee quite some time ago. So long ago we met in person.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Wade. I think the short answer is yes. Cuckooing does exist. It exists in every area across the country. Again, to use the simple analogy, where there's an opportunity to make money, people will exploit that position. And again, it's about power and control. We've had within the district a few incidents certainly over the last calendar year. I dealt with one personally in the last quarter, where we had a very proactive presence from the police, a very, very large turnout. This was in terms of a property of ours, whereby we had clear intelligence that the occupant had been cuckooed. And for the members to explain what that means, in case we're kind of on a different language here, basically what that means is that the property had been overtaken by those involved within criminal and drug activity, and were therefore using that property as a dealing address within that local community. Now, those persons were not from the New Forest. They exerted a lot of violence against the person to take control and gain compliance. That was noted. We've done some training across all services within the council and with all our partners. They know what to look for. They know how to communicate that with the residents. And where we did find it out, that proactive approach with the police led to a very swift all entrance through the front and the back doors and the windows, with the occupant, the victim, being moved to a place of safety, and they are now working with support services and the police then doing the proactive bit around the perpetrators. So to answer your question, Councillor, it does happen. It's also tenure neutral. I think we need to be clear about that. It's not just something that happens in social housing. It happens in any accommodation. It happens in private sector, commercial sector, again, where people see an opportunity to create a base and then from that base create a financial network. But again, an awful lot of work has gone on with the Safer New Forest conference with the previous year. There's some work around it, and again we looked at some of the vulnerability this year within the webinars as well. So it's a growing area. I personally, when we talk about it, I think sometimes when we use the terminology such as county lines, I think, if I may be honest with you, I think it loses its relevance and its message to understanding to the wider audience. What I prefer to say to people is it's the exploitation of vulnerable persons. I think we all understand what that is, if that makes sense. I think the moment we start using terminology like county lines, people see that as a suburban crime, like the inner crimes of London and Manchester, as opposed to something that affects all areas. So, but that's just my little personal, professional kind of view of that one, Councillor Wade.
Can I just also interject? You're not going to like this bit, Brian.
Yep.
There is a county lines awareness 2 weeks in February. Sorry. And the police have already got plans of what they will be doing. You will see far more on social media and around county lines. The New Forest are taking it and embracing it and working with it. I know not all of the areas are in Hampshire because of COVID, and they're concentrating on that. So you will see more happening in February with regard to that.
Okay, all right, Alex, if I can go to Steve Clark. Steve?
I just wanted to come back, Chairman, on the community engagement and actually praise the team on community engagement, because I know full well in normal times they're out and about. They do come out. They've been in our market, for example, as you know, Chairman, and they do excellent work. So, but it's been extraordinary times in the last year. You would expect to see it more difficult, but I think they still deserve the praise for everything they have done in terms of community engagement.
Thank you. Okay, for no other questions, I'll go back to you, Brian, then.
Is that to me, Chairman? Sorry, beg your pardon.
Yes,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, Chairman, that's all from me in terms of where we are. What we are now is that as Nicky's explained, the partners have agreed, the strategy group have now agreed the 4 priorities. Nicky will now go away and develop that into a work plan. And I'm more than happy, Chairman. Obviously, we'll bring that work plan back to the next meeting for your pursuit and consideration, and so we can discuss that with you. But I think again we also want to widen that before we go to actually write the plan. If people have any ideas, both in terms of local resource that they want to add to that, please do let Nicky or myself know based on those 4 areas.
That's excellent. I think some excellent questions this evening, and equally some excellent answers. So thank you for that. If I can take the panel members to the recommendations then on 7.1. The recommendation is that the panel approves the draft strategy assessment for 2020. Everybody's happy with that, I take it? Nobody's indicating to the contrary, although I've got Barry, you've come up on my screen. Was that an error?
I was just raising my hand.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's lovely then. Thank you, and thank you both, Nicky and Brian. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay. If we can now move on then to item 5, which is the community grants. And if I could ask Ryan to introduce that paper. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, councillors. This report consists of 3 areas: the care grants, SLAs we have with Hampshire County Council, and community grants. And the aim of this report is to bring all the community grants together to ensure transparency, consistency, scrutiny, and a clear decision-making process. I'll give a very brief overview of each of the aspects of the report, and we can take some questions at the end. So firstly, looking at the care grants, these grants are given to local groups who support clients that need repeated medical journeys to hospitals. We've been providing this support for some years, and originally the scheme was in partnership with Hampshire County Council and Community First. The Task and Finish Group looked at this, recognising the benefits and value of the scheme. And each year with the grants that we give, they range from £200 to £1,500 to 4 or 5 different groups. And to ensure consistency and transparency, the Task and Finish Group recommend that any grant exceeding £600 should go to the community grants panel. That would be for inclusion in the 2022-23 budget, like all the other revenue community grant applications that we receive. And then for any grants below £600, groups will be encouraged to contact their local ward councillor. To ensure the support remains for this current year, 2021-22, it is recommended that the scheme will continue. That will continue to be administered in line with the current procedures and with the current budget. Looking at the SLAs, so there are 3 SLAs we have with Hampshire County Council on transportation projects. These are due to be reviewed. These schemes are the Wills to Work scheme, Call and Go, and Group Hire. And I've given a brief summary of each of the schemes in the report. And again, to ensure transparency, these SLAs will be reviewed. and we will confirm what support the council will provide going forward via a portfolio holder decision. Any decision will be within the annual budget for 21 and 22, which again I've highlighted in the report. The third aspect of the report is the community grants. So Task and Finish Group met in October and November. We considered 24 applications. These were conducted via Skype this year, with presentations given by each of the applicants, and then the group was able to ask questions and get answers on the application form and actually from the presentation. As you can see from Appendix 1 in the report, we had applications to the value of 199,500 for revenue grants, 286,300 for capital grants. So clearly we're not able to support every application, and there were some difficult decisions to be made by the panel. Following consideration of the grants and deliberation, the group recommend awarding 127,000 in revenue grants, 80,300 in capital grants. Appendix 2 provides the detailed reasoning for the recommendations for each of the applications. I do not propose to go through each recommendation. It's all there hopefully in detail, but happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ryan. Before we take questions, I just really would like to thank the Task and Finish Group for their work on the community grants, and just invite Councillor Steve Davis. Do you want to add anything before we go into questions, Steve?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I have to say, I have to once again commend the work that goes on, not just by the panel, but certainly by Ryan and Jamie Burton, because without all their work beforehand and all their work afterwards, our 2 hard days wouldn't have happened. It is a very hard slog, 2 days, very intense work, a lot of concentration, but great teamwork, and very sensible and well measured responses. We can't please everyone. You have to make a very difficult decision, as Ryan said. So my compliments to Ryan and Jamie, of course, as always, fantastic work. But also, I have to say, but none of this would have been possible on the days without Andy Rogers. And once again, he has shown how he makes things happen, or he's a great enabler for us in so many committees. So thank you also to Andy Rogers. But the team did great work, and it was a great pleasure to be slogging our guts out together for 2 days. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And I know everybody appreciates the work that all the officers do. If I could go firstly then to Councillor Edward Heron.
Chairman, members, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you this evening. I just want to talk about the grant application for Martin Club, which is item 20 in your capital grants. And the club have asked me to make some representation to you this evening in the hope that the panel might go against the recommendations of your Task and Finish Group and award them some small amount. They asked me to point out that the club building is used by everyone in the community of Martin, and those who don't know Martin, it's a small village on the Wiltshire-Dorset border of our district, and therefore the facility would be there for all members of the community, regardless of their membership of the club or not. They also wanted to point out that actually it is a fairly modest building, comparable to local village halls, and is a significant scale back on the building that is being replaced to allow a large part of the funding for it. And therefore, members, if you perhaps did feel minded to recommend a grant going forward, perhaps of say even £25,000, I know that would be greatly welcomed by the members of the club. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Firstly to Ryan, I guess you want to go. Can I direct you to the summary on 20, Ryan?
Yeah, it's a
Page
summary.
73, Chairman. Yeah.
Page 73. Yeah, the summary. Again, not much more to add other than the reason for the decision is put in detail in the report. I said the Task and Finish Group did deliberate on all these for some time to come to the decision. Obviously, it was a significant sum, and the project is a large scale in proportion to its overall membership when comparing that with other grant applications as well. So I think the report sort of details the reasoning for the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any other members then wish to comment on that or any other item? I've got Councillor Steve Davis. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you again, Chairman. Just to say, yes, as Ryan said, we did spend a lot of time considering these requests, but it's always been a tough call, and we admired what Martin are trying to achieve, but their initial request, of course, was for most of our capital grant funding in total. But the question I'd always ask myself, and I did consider this again as I read through this, is if we offer them anything, who do we take it away from? And quite frankly, that's the judgment we have to make all the time. And so on this basis, it'd be very difficult to consider offering anything to Martin Club.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other member comments then or questions? If not, then if I can take you then to I've got Steve Clark. Steve.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on the Minstead Trust and say, I visited there between lockdowns when we were allowed out, and just to commend the work they do with people with learning disability, and I'm glad we've given them a grant because the various individuals were out working with varying needs, and it was good to see them out and about amongst the community doing something which they clearly enjoyed and which the public could appreciate. So just a bit of praise for the Fursey Gardens and Minstead Trust, and recommend that anybody who lives in the New Forest visits regularly so that they can make sure their income is good as well.
Thank you for that, Steve. Alex Wade.
Thank you very much, Chairman. With regards to the amount suggested by on both the capital and the revenue grants, is it the case that the total amount is the maximum amount that we as the council have budgeted to give to community grants? Because Councillor Davies makes a very important point. If you give something to one, you might have to take it away from the other. I wondered if there was a deliberate reason for the total amount presented today, or if we reached the ceiling with the amount that we could give. That was all.
If I can answer that question, Chairman, we do have an overall budget of 130,000 for the revenue and £100,000 for the capital. Obviously, that's a budget up to that amount. Doesn't mean we have to spend that amount. It's still got to be considered, scrutinised, justified, etc. So it's an amount up to that amount.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, David Russell. David.
Thank you, Chairman. Minstead Trust has a building within Tottenham, which is a theatre, and as we all know, theatres have been closed in lockdown, and that was one of their opportunities to raise money and to also give work to their people. And I was just wondering if we can give a little bit more, because they've been particularly hard hit, and it would be quite a nice gesture if we could do that. And I do say I also support Edward's application, Edward Heron's application as well, and we should be considering that. Thank you.
I'll go back to Ryan. I think with these members, it's always easy to sort of revisit it and open up the debate on all of them. But I know that the Task and Finish group have dealt with them all in quite some detail. But I'll go back to Ryan.
Thank you, Jim. I was literally going to reiterate the same points. Again, it was tough decisions, looking at the overall budget, looking at the applications. Minstead did refer to that in their application about the Hanger Farm and income there. Like I said, we've got a budget of 130,000, 127's been recommended to the panel. and the Task and Finish group have already sort of scrutinised and made their recommendation. Nothing really further to add on that, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I've got Arthur Davis. Arthur.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Councillor Davies that we took 2 days when it was quite intense, and we argued the case. We looked at every aspect. We made these decisions. I'm not inclined to unravel these decisions. I mean, the Interest Trust is a fantastic, and we actually halved what they wanted. But in the end, it's in my Minster Trust, and Hanger Farm is in my heart. But sometimes you have to make these decisions, like Councillor Davies said. So I think we made some. You can keep, once you go back and unravel it, it could come out like a ball of wool everywhere. And like Councillor Davies said, who do you take it away from? We made those decisions, and I'm inclined to stay with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I go to Caroline.
Thank you. I'm just wondering that as this has been such an appallingly hard year for lots of charities and community groups, I'm wondering if there's any room for us to up the budget for next year to help people recover.
Okay, well, I think the budget next year is actually not for this meeting to discuss here, but I take the point. I've got David Russell wanting to come back. David. You there, David? Still David. I've still got David Russell indicating.
Sorry, Chairman, it's me being a bit slow. I didn't actually hear my surname. I heard David, but I didn't hear my surname.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to make. Have a comment that if we can have on the Task and Finish group next year a different set of people, it would be rather nice, because you don't seem to get a change of personnel doing it, and it would be nice if we could change the personnel. That's all my only comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go to Alex Wade. Alex.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I would echo the previous speaker as well, and also ensure that there's a good geographical split around the district as well. I imagine it helps those of us who live on one side to understand the benefits of, say, proposals from Ringwood and Fordingbridge, and indeed so we can be as fair as we can. I just wanted to know, the 23,000 overall underspend, does that get stored in general reserves, or does that go towards the community grants next year? Because I completely understand the points raised so far, but if there is an underspend, could this not go towards supporting organisations when we have this discussion for 2021?
I say that the amount is a set amount that we budgeted for. So obviously any amounts that we don't spend will not be part of that budget. They don't get carried over to next year. So the budget will still be the same next year. I think that's the amounts that are included in the medium-term financial plan. Okay,
if there are no other questions, then may I take you therefore to the recommendations on page 69, 1.1 to 1.3. Is everybody happy with that? Yep.
Yeah, happy, Chairman.
Thank you. I've got nobody indicating to the contrary, so thank you, members, for that. If then I can move on, please, to item 6, which is Dibden Golf Centre, an update on that, and I believe that's Colin. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. This is just a regular update that we bring to inform you of how things are progressing at Dibden Golf Course in relation to the partnership arrangement we have with My Time Active. This time last year, the working party that we've got of our members worked really hard with My Time to try and put in place some investment in the course, changes of some procedures, and everything was going really well, and we were looking forward to next summer. Last summer, unfortunately, COVID hit us, and since that time, the course has actually been shut 3 times. So it was initially shut. So it was shut in March, April last year. It was then shut again in November, and currently the course is shut to date. The working group, chaired by Councillor Jan Duke, has actually been meeting my time every month for the last few months to try and understand the issues that my time, but not only my time, but the whole of the golfing industry has had trying to reopen the course in a safe COVID way. That's included the number of people allowed to play at any one time. It's included mainly involved in the clubhouse, how we can get people into the clubhouse safely, how we can get people partaking in food and drink safely, and ensuring that there is an offer that my time and the council are happy that people can use the course on a regular basis. Been quite difficult through the year in terms of making sure that all those arrangements are in place, but there is actually some positive news. The fact that during June, July and August, we saw 50% increase in the number of people playing golf at Dibden compared to the previous year. I'm not sounding our trumpets too loud because that was something that nationally all courses seem to see. People not holidaying, people trying to get out a bit more. But the good point from that, from my time's point of view and the council's point of view, is a lot of people were exercising at Dibden, and therefore the course was being utilised. Sometimes in 90–95% of the number of bookings were being taken up on a daily basis, which is an excellent achievement. Unfortunately, my time have suffered this year because of the lack of the ability to promote catering events, third-party income in terms of letting the site out for wedding fairs. All those sort of activities haven't happened this year. So my time I've actually seen quite a downturn in their income that they've received from sort of non-golfing activities. They've obviously missed out on the Christmas party income that they normally get. So we've been talking with my time on a regular basis, so a monthly basis with a working group, and understanding their financial position. And it's fair to say after the working group were very firm in terms of their requirements from my time actually providing us with a monthly statement of their financial position purely in relation to Dibden. So we understand exactly where my time is, and we've been able to offer them some financial assistance in terms of looking at mitigating some of their rental payments that they make to us, on the basis that we're trying to foster an open relationship, a transparent relationship with my time, and the working group have actually worked really hard to understand that position. Currently, as we speak, as I said, the golf course is closed. My time have got 3 full-time members and 4 part-time members of staff currently on furlough. We have an agreement with my time, whereas they have got 3 of their greenkeepers still working as we speak. And actually they are fulfilling their requirements to keep the course to a required standard while the lockdown is in place. They're also carrying out some additional winter works, which we've agreed with my time previously. I think it's been a difficult time for my time. It's been a difficult time for the council in terms of making sure that the course, when it is open, is in a very good condition, and that certainly happened during the year. We are now working with my time to try and produce an action plan for when the course reopens, but also to ensure that some of the works that we were planning to do with the improvements to the course on either drainage, winter's tees or car parking, we can look to try and reinstate some of that as we go back into the sort of opening up of the course, hopefully during the summer months. I personally would like to thank the members of the working group for their guidance during the last few months. The monthly meetings have been really, really useful, and I think we've managed to get through this in a very open and transparent way with my time, hopefully in a position now that we can develop that relationship going forward through the summer months, and my time in a position to open up the course and actually provide a very good course for the clubs and the members of the public that are using it. So difficult year in summary, but I think working with My Time and the members working group, I think we've got ourselves to a position where we can look forward to 2021 and more golf being played at Dibden. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Colin, for that update. I must thank you and all the officers on that one particularly. Also that you haven't just accepted what My Time has said, nor the working group have either. You've really drilled down and questioned on each particular item. And the important thing is to work with them, particularly at the moment. Are there any questions for Colin? Okay, there are none. So thank you very much for that, then, Colin. Moving on then to item 7, which is the work programme. If I could particularly refer you to the performance dashboards. This is not, it is an agenda item, but it gives the opportunity on each of the dashboards for members to, if they want any further information or background or any additional items put on these dashboards or any targets or any particular explanation from the two portfolio holders here tonight. So any particular questions on the dashboards? You've all gone quiet on me. Okay, is there anything we need to pick up then at the moment, for the moment, Andy or Colin, on work programme? Colin, if I go to you first.
Nothing from me, Chairman.
Okay. Andy?
Nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay. Going back then to the work programme. Well, let's lead into item 8, which is portfolio holder updates. If I can go to Diane Andrews first of all.
Thank you, Chairman. Just do a little bit of unmuting here. There we go. Throughout the last months, all areas of my portfolio have been performing above and beyond what is expected of them. Different departments have shared responsibilities that, under normal circumstances, are well outside their normal sphere of influence. Those that are working from home have and are always contactable and flexible. And those in the public eye, like our ambassadors and Careline installers, have been seen to make the community safer. Our customer service offices closed once Tier 4 was announced, but now have limited opening times for vulnerable customers. The work behind the scenes continues, making sure anyone in financial hardship or those needing more complex support can access the help that they need. Briefly, I'll do a quick update on some of the other departments. The local response centre is once again operational 7 days a week. Referrals being handled by supervisors in the CCTV and Careline team. You see here the cooperation I was talking about earlier. Onward referrals for support with prescriptions and befriending are sent to Community First, who are also operational 7 days a week. The main reasons for referrals continue to be support with access to food, medication, prescription collection and delivery, and befriending services. In the first 2 weeks since Tier 4 restrictions were introduced, we had 46 referrals, and they're broken down as 28 were for food, 17 for medication and prescriptions, 6 befriending, and 5 financial hardship. 3 food parcels were provided during this period. This happens in emergency cases only, and more commonly, people are supported access to food through online shopping, telephone shopping, or through a volunteer, which is seen as a more sustainable option for the individual. Preparations are ongoing for the elections to be held on the 6th of May 2021, which include Police and Crime Commissioner, Hampshire County Council, and 3 by-elections, which is Milford, Butts Ash and Ringwood North. Whilst preparations continue, there is still the possibility that elections may be postponed for a few months. I mentioned earlier that customer services have opened in Appletree Court, New Milton and Lymington. They opened yesterday and will be open for 3 days a week, 9:30 to 12:30. Hythe opens 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday. This is to help our most vulnerable customers. We will accept payments for those who do not have access to online banking, but sales of car parking clocks and refuse bags will not be available. The COVID ambassadors have been very well received, all you naysayers, and seen as a positive addition to the fight against COVID by businesses and the public. They should be commended for their intervention on one day when they performed emergency resuscitation for an unwell individual. All in a day's work for our ambassadors. Thank you to the Grant Task and Finish Group. I can confirm that decisions made this year were not without robust discussion. Each councillor put their own interests aside and worked collectively to come to the report you agreed this evening. Thank you to all of you for everything you've done and continue to do. It is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Are there any questions for Diane? I've just got one, Diane, if I may, on the COVID ambassadors. You mentioned particularly an event where they were able to help, but what's generally been the reaction from the public? There seemed to be a lot of negative talk to start with. Can you give us a bit of an update there?
Well, it started, if you remember, back at Brockenhurst railway station with students, and they went in and a couple of days a week when the students were coming in, and believe it or not, the students were more than happy to see them. The shops that were having problems, say with the amount of people wanting to go in and out of the shops, just having the ambassadors around just seemed to have a calming influence on everybody. And if there was any disputes as to who could do what, they were there and people accepted what they say. I am delighted, honestly, the way the whole of the New Forest have reacted to them, because I too was thinking they were going to come in for a rough ride, but I'm really pleased to say, Chairman, it was a good move on our part.
Thank you for that. I've got Alex Wade. Alex?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Andrews, just very quickly, the response centre, is the intention to have that open up until the end of February or the end of March, or is it a case to be ongoing based on updates from the government? I wonder if there's a plan of action to keep that open for a particular amount of time.
Well, crystal ball stuff this, Alex, isn't it? I mean, how long is everything going to go on for? I mean, my ideal thing would be that we could close it as soon as possible because we don't need it. That would be the ideal situation. But I fear it's going to be with us for a couple of months yet. I do not know if there is a set finishing date, but I don't think so.
Okay. I've got Barry Dunning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a question for Diane Andrews. Are the COVID ambassadors going to be carrying on for the foreseeable future? Because I think they've done a really good job, and I'd like to see them carrying on with their valuable work.
Councillor Dunning, in fact, we've just got a new COVID ambassador to replace one that we knew was leaving, and she will be joining the team, and we are going to definitely be around for a while to come.
And one last question, are they coming down to Lymington?
Oh, yes.
Good, thank you.
We have a timetable, they have a timetable, and they do and have been in Lymington. And if you would like to know more when they will be there, I'll be happy to send you a timetable.
That would be fantastic, thank you.
No problem.
I had Brian Byrne, your hand seemed to be popping up and down. I'm not quite sure.
Chairman, please apologise. For some reason, my hand started to shake on the screen.
Oh,
so
right.
It wasn't me. It was honestly the computer. So I do apologise. It was just in addition to Councillor Andrews, just to confirm to Councillor Wade, the initial extension date isn't. I think we're looking at till September. is what we're looking at with the LRC at a local level. But as Councillor Andrews has said, that is always under review. None of us foresaw at any point lockdown 3, and certainly none of us foresaw would be in this position. So, but I think what we're saying is that certainly I think the LRF is saying to keep it going till at least September. And the latter part with regards to Lymington, the ambassadors are there for the Lymington market on the weekends. They're doing that, and they're also down there at least twice on 2 days during the week. So we try and rotate them around where there's a commercial need or where we know there's times of busyness. And it was actually really pleasing, I think, as Councillor Andrews pointed out, the positivity from, and not just from the public, but from members here tonight, particularly Councillor Dunning. It's a hard job for these guys, particularly in the weather, particularly in this environment, to go out there and be the face of what is for all of us a very challenging thing. So I certainly will pass on the thoughts, certainly of Councillor Andrews and certainly for the members tonight, and I'll certainly send out the rotas so that you can see where they are.
Thank you very much, Brian. Do have a glass of water to stem your excitement.
Thank you, Chairman.
Diane, if I could come back to you then, if I may. Does that anything else you'd like to add, Diane?
Well, to be quite honest, Chair, there's so much of little bits and pieces, but really, I think I'm happy to leave my report there.
Okay, if there are no other questions then that are coming up, if I could go to Councillor Mark Still.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the panel and all. I've got 2 parts to my update this evening. So the first part is based, or the update on operationally, with regards to we had to stop all group exercise classes from the 26th of December 2020 when we moved into Tier 3, and then from the 31st of December, as we moved into Tier 4, all of the centre facilities were closed. However, at Applemore, we are open for our partners, Oak Lodge School, preschool, and the vaccination centre as well. The majority of our staff have been furloughed, and as soon as we're able to, obviously, we will be ready to reopen for our customers. Chairman, may I ask your permission just to share my screen now for the second part?
Of course, yes.
Thank you. I'm hoping. Can you all see that? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't see. Well, I've got the chairman, and that's about it at this moment in time. So thank you again. With regards to providing an update on the, well, now to provide you an update on the health and leisure review, I am pleased that the procurement process for a partner is now complete, and we will be recommencing Freedom, or we will be, sorry, recommending, not we will be recommending Freedom Leisure ahead of the decision-making process, which, as you will know, includes a special meeting of this panel on the 9th of February. We are undertaking a range of virtual briefings. We have written to staff today with dates of staff briefings. We have a number of special briefings for stakeholder panel and the trade unions as well. We will be communicating in the morning to all customers. There will be a briefing for each of the centres, which I've put up on the screen for all to see. And so they'll be able to attend the centre-based sessions. That's not to say if they're missing one, they can go, but they'll be more specific, these sessions aimed around Applemore, but obviously there'll be probably similar questions from all. Full instructions of how you can access the briefings will be detailed, as well as an email address where customers and staff can send any questions ahead and during the briefing. All briefings will include a presentation by Freedom Leisure, who are a not-for-profit leisure trust. Freedom Leisure now runs 101 leisure facilities for 23 council partners, schools and academies. Chairman, I would also take this opportunity to personally thank all the members of the Task and Leisure Review Group, past and present. Thank you, Chairman. That completes my portfolio update.
Thank you very much, Mark. I don't know whether you can take the...
I'm just working that out, Chair. There we go.
Just coming off. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for updating us on those key dates for the briefings. If I go to Councillor Steve Clark. Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to reiterate Mark's comments and notice thanks to the Task and Finish group. Obviously, there will be a members' briefings next week as well. I do commend that every member attends that briefing so that they can be fully appraised of the detail and the actual robustness of the process that's gone through. I think members across the council will be surprised at actually the sheer volume of work that's been done since April 2018. It seems longer for some reason, but I think the officers who've gone through this process, and I'll say this again when we actually get to review the reports that are coming up, the officers who've gone through this process again deserve praise for all the hard work that's been put into the health and leisure review. It's been a team effort all the way through, and I know Mark endorses that. So, but I will repeat that at such time. But do attend the briefings, and clearly the customer forums are an important part of the process as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Stephen. I think the important thing is to stress this is the next stepping stone in this process that we're working on in each step on the process as we work towards the end of it, gives the opportunity for everybody to scrutinise it right the way through. Caroline, I've got Caroline next. Caroline.
Thank you. As you know, I've now resigned from the group because I wanted to distance myself from this decision, and I don't agree with it. But I do just want to say how much work has gone into making this decision. The actual process, I think, has been very, very efficient and really well done. So I did just want to pass that on, however much I disagree with the end result.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. I think that's very useful to make, particularly for the officers involved as well as the group. Alex Wade.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I just wanted to clarify how, beyond the members, how far the 5 centre Q&As will be publicised. Bear in mind, I appreciate it's quite a tight schedule. We're talking about in the next 10 days or so for all 5 of them. How far and wide that will be published to those on and not on social media?
Come back to you, Mark.
Yes, for fullness, I'm going to defer to Manjit because, funny enough, we were actually discussing that this afternoon. So I'll just defer.
Okay.
Okay, we will make sure we come back to you with an answer on that.
Okay.
Okay. I've got Manjit has just come in. I didn't see you sneak in there.
That's okay. That's okay,
Yeah.
Chairman. I think what I would say is that so the objective is to hold the customer briefings where there'll be a presentation from Freedom and an opportunity to ask questions. So there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the sessions. And then what we aim to do is pull together that feedback as we walk through the decision-making process. So we will share some sort of frequently asked questions once we finish the briefings. I hope that helps.
Does that answer your question, Alex? You're muted.
My main question was how the briefings are publicised. to the wider community ahead, so people can watch them rather than. I appreciate what Maggie says. Thank you very much. But it's mainly how they're publicised because they're happening quite soon, and obviously by the end of the month.
Yeah. Okay. So just if that's okay, Chair. We will be communicating that through emails that we've got. So we've got the app. We'll also be writing to the clubs. So there's a range of customers that we've got and stakeholders. So we'll be doing everything we can to get that communication across to enable customers to access the sessions.
Okay, I've got Mark wanting to come back. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Just to assure the panel members and Alex as well, we will obviously be coming back on the 9th of February for a special meeting to this panel, and at that, all of those comments from those briefings will obviously be aired to this panel. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions then of Mark? Don't know what that is. Somebody's left on a motorbike, but we're okay. Right. Okay then. Thank you both portfolio holders, Diane and Mark, for that update. If I can move on to item 9, which is any other items that are urgent. I have no other items which are urgent. I just finally like to thank the members and officers for all their, particularly all their hard work on these reports. And I look forward to seeing you all again on the 9th of February. Thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.